Shabis Tukshanat. First do the word for word. Dharma, religiosity. Projita, completely rejected. Kaitava, covered by fruit of intention. Atra, herein. Parama, the highest. Nirmatsaranam, of the 100% pure in heart. Satam, devotees. Vejam, understandable. Vastavam, factual. Atra, herein. Vastu, substance. Shivadam, well-being. Tapatraya, threefold miseries. Unmulanam, causing uprooting of. Srimat, beautiful. Bhagavate, the Bhagavata Purana. Mahamuni, the great sage Vyasadeva. Krite, having compiled. Kim, what is. Va, the need. Parai, others. Ishvara, the Supreme Lord. Sadhya, at once. Shridi, within the heart. Avarudite, become compact. Atra, herein. Kritibhi, by the pious men. Shushrushabhi. Srila Prabhupada. Religion includes 4 primary subjects, namely pious activities, economic development, satisfaction of the senses, and finally, liberation from material bondage. Can you lift it up? Irreligious life is a barbarous condition. And down a little. Thank you. Indeed, human life begins when religion begins. Eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating are the 4 principles of animal life. These are common both to animals and to human beings, but religion is the extra function of the human being. Without religion, human life is no better than animal life. Therefore, in human societies, there is some form of religion which aims at self-realization and which makes reference to man's eternal relationship with God. In the lower stages of human civilization, there is always competition to lord it over the material nature, or, in other words, there is a continuous rivalry to satisfy the senses. Driven by such consciousness, man turns to religion. He thus performs pious activities or religious functions in order to gain something material. If such material gains are obtainable in other ways, then so-called religion is neglected. This is the situation in modern civilization. Man is thriving economically, so at present he is not very interested in religion. Churches, mosques, or temples are now practically vacant. Men are more interested in factories, shops, and cinemas than in religious places which were erected by their forefathers. This practically proves that religion is performed for some economic gains. Economic gains are needed for sense gratification. Often, when one is baffled in the pursuit of sense gratification, he takes to salvation and tries to become one with the Supreme Lord. Consequently, all these states are simply different types of sense gratification. In the Vedas, the above-mentioned 4 activities are prescribed in the regulative way so that there will not be any undue competition for sense gratification. But Srimad Bhagavatam is transcendental to all these sense gratificatory activities. It is purely transcendental literature, which can be understood only by the pure devotees of the Lord who are transcendental to competitive sense gratification. In the material world, there is keen competition between animal and animal, man and man, community and community, nation and nation. But the devotees of the Lord rise above such competitions. They do not compete with the materialists because they are on the path back to Godhead, where life is eternal and blissful. Such transcendentalists are non-envious and pure in heart. Excuse me. In the material world, everyone is envious of everyone else, and therefore there is competition. But the transcendental devotees of the Lord are not only free from material envy, but are well-wishers to everyone, and they strive to establish a competitionless society with God in the center. The contemporary socialists' conception of a competitionless society is artificial because in the socialist state there is competition for the post of dictator. From the point of view of the Vedas, or from the point of view of common human activities, sense gratification is the basis of material life. There are three paths mentioned in the Vedas. One involves fruitive activities to gain promotion to better planets. Another involves worshiping different demigods for promotion to the planets of the demigods. And another involves realizing the absolute truth and his impersonal feature and becoming one with him. The impersonal aspect of the absolute truth is not the highest. Above the impersonal feature is the Paramatma feature, and above this is the personal feature of the absolute truth, or Bhagavan. Srimad Bhagavatam gives information about the absolute truth in his personal feature. It is higher than impersonalist literatures and higher than the Jnana Kanda division of the Vedas. It is even higher than the Karma Kanda division, and even higher than the Upasana Kanda division, because it recommends the worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Sri Krishna. In the Karma Kanda, there is competition to reach heavenly planets for better sense gratification. And there is similar competition in the Jnana Kanda and Upasana Kanda. The Srimad Bhagavatam is superior to all of these because it aims at the supreme truth, which is the substance or the root of all categories. From Srimad Bhagavatam, one can come to know the substance as well as the categories. The substance is the absolute truth, the Supreme Lord, and all emanations are relative forms of energy. Nothing is apart from the substance, but at the same time, the energies are different from the substance. This conception is not contradictory. Srimad Bhagavatam explicitly promulgates this simultaneously one and different philosophy from the Vedanta Sutra, which begins with Janmadyasya Sutra, the Janmadyasya Sutra. This knowledge that the energy of the Lord is simultaneously one with and different from the Lord is an answer to the mental speculator's attempt to establish the energy as the absolute. When this knowledge is factually understood, one sees the conceptions of monism and dualism to be imperfect. Development of this transcendental consciousness, grounded in the conception of simultaneously one and different, leads one immediately to the stage of freedom from the threefold miseries. The threefold miseries are: 1, those miseries which arise from the mind and body; 2, those miseries inflicted by other living beings; and 3, those miseries arising from natural catastrophes over which one has no control. Srimad Bhagavatam begins with the surrender of the devotee unto the absolute person. The devotee is fully aware that he is one with the absolute, and at the same time in the eternal position of servant to the absolute. In the material conception, one falsely thinks himself the Lord of all he surveys, and therefore he is always troubled by the threefold miseries of life. But as soon as one comes to know his real position as transcendental servant, he at once becomes free from all miseries. As long as the living entity is trying to master material nature, there is no possibility of his becoming servant of the Supreme. Service to the Supreme Lord is rendered in pure consciousness of one's spiritual identity. By service, one is immediately freed from material encumbrances. Over and above this, Srimad Bhagavatam is a personal commentation on the Vedanta Sutra by Srila Vyasadeva. It was written in the maturity of his spiritual life through the mercy of Narada. Sri Vyasadeva is the authorized incarnation of Narayan, the personality of Godhead. Therefore, there is no question as to his authority. He is the author of all other Vedic literatures, yet he recommends the study of Srimad Bhagavatam above all others. In the Puranas, there are different methods set forth by which one can worship the demigods, but in the Bhagavatam only, the Supreme Lord is mentioned. The Supreme Lord is the total body, and the demigods are the different parts of that body. Consequently, by worshiping the Supreme Lord, one does not need to worship the demigods. The Supreme Lord becomes fixed in the heart, and the devotee the Supreme Lord becomes fixed in the heart of the devotee immediately. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has recommended the Srimad Bhagavatam as the spotless Purana and distinguishes it from all other Puranas. The proper method for receiving this transcendental message is to hear it submissively. A challenging attitude cannot help one realize this transcendental message. One particular word is used herein for proper guidance. The word is shushushu. One must be anxious to hear this transcendental message. The desire to sincerely hear is the first qualification. Less fortunate persons are not at all interested in hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam. The process is simple, but the application is difficult. Unfortunate people find enough time to hear idle social and political conversations, but while invited to attend a meeting of devotees to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, they suddenly become reluctant. Sometimes professional readers of the Bhagavatam immediately plunge into the confidential topics of the pastimes of the Supreme Lord, which they seemingly interpret as sex literature. Srimad Bhagavatam is meant to be heard from the beginning. Those who are fit to assimilate this work are mentioned in this shloka. Quote, one becomes qualified to hear Srimad Bhagavatam after many pious deeds. The intelligent person with thoughtful discretion can be assured by the great sage Vyasadeva that he can realize the Supreme Personality directly by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Without undergoing the different stages of realization set forth in the Vedas, one can be lifted immediately to the position of Paramahamsa simply by agreeing to receive the message. We could say the Sanskrit together. Dharma projitakai, Dharma projitakaita votra paramo nirmatsaranam satam Vejam vastavamatra vastu shivadam tapatrayun mulanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kimva Prayerishvara Sadhya Varutyate Kritibi Sushrushabhistakshana. I first offer my respectful obeisances to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, to all the previous acharyas, and to the assembled devotees. Vansha kalpatarubhascha kripasindhave evacha patitanam bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. I'd also like to express my deep gratitude to His Holiness Bhakti Marg Swami. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here in Toronto. He's perhaps the most affable devotee, actually person, that I've ever met. Creative in the extreme and makes people want to come and join the Krishna consciousness movement because it's creative and done enthusiastically, especially when you're in His Holiness's presence. Thank you, Maharaj, for all you've done for me and what you're doing for everyone in the world in the Krishna conscious movement. That's not perfunctory, that's from my heart of hearts. Thank you. Well, there's a lot in this verse. It's such an appropriate introduction to the whole book. We can look at a few parts. So we have several days to discuss, which is a great luxury to have the opportunity to go day after day into the Bhagavatam and realize its glories and appreciate them, as well as the approach. Shushusho, as Prabhupada pointed out, means to have an eagerness to hear. And then he says that this is the symptom of advancement in devotional service. This is a verifiable symptom. Jiva Goswami says as much as well in his Sandarbha, that you can judge how advanced you're becoming by how eager you are to hear. Prabhupada also notes in the purport we just read that when one begins to speak the Bhagavat, some people become reluctant to hear. They have a natural aversion to hearing because their ears are tuned to those sounds which are infused with the three modes of material nature. And when one is in such a condition, one's naturally inclined, in fact impelled, to hear sounds that are of the same nature. We also heard in the purport that by hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, even if one might be slightly reluctant, then there's a natural purification of heart. We know this from the paragraph that Prabhupada quoted on the Jaladuta when he was coming to America, Tato Jaya Mudirayat, under the umbrella of this phrase that we chant in Narayanam Namaskritya, that the very means of conquest will be the Srimad Bhagavatam. Prabhupada then expresses it by quoting Shushusho Shradhanasya Vasudeva Katarachi Syan Mahatsevya Vipra Punya Tirtana Shevana Shinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridyan Taksto Hyabadrani Vidunoti Suritsatam Nashta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Yuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Bhakti Yogata Bhagavat Tattva Vijnana Mukta Sangasya Jayate Vidyate Hridaya Grantis Chijante Sarva Samshaya Shiyante Chasya Karmani Drishta Eva Manishvare. And then Ato Vai Kavayo Nityam Bhaktim Paramaya Muda Vasudeve Bhagavati Kurvantyatma Prasadana. The last verse, I'll go backwards. Last verse says that, devotees take great joy in hearing this. It's their source of pleasure, source of happiness. And we find also that Parikshit Maharaj, when he was hearing from Shukadev, mentions, this is in the 10th canto, that although I'm fasting and I'm also not sleeping, normally one might be tired or thirsty. Said, Chutam Harikatamritam. Chuta means to fall, and Harikatamritam means the nectar of the topics of Hari. But because the nectar of the topics of Hari are falling from your mouth, I'm drinking that. And therefore, I'm not tired and I'm not thirsty. There's real enjoyment in hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam. And then going backwards into the paragraph, or starting from the beginning, it's a mention that one gains an impetus to hear if one renders service. When one does service to great souls, says Sutta in this verse, great service is done. And by such service, one gains an affinity for hearing. Then, once one takes to the process of hearing, Everyone knows the verse, Srinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana. That process is in and itself spiritual activity, which brings one good fortune. What's more, Vidunoti Suritsatam, Krishna is a surit, he's the friend within the heart. And he appreciates that one is lending one's ear to hearing topics about him. Topics that he's interested in hearing, because after all, the Bhagavata is about his relationship with his devotees. And he helps, Vidunoti means to sort out. He sorts out or winnows out those lower desires and urges within the heart, so that gradually, nashta prayushu abhadreshu, one may notice an improvement by hearing from Srimad Bhagavatam. And after that progression, there's a point at which, tada, there it is. At this point, one says, I'm noticing it, a recovery, tada rajas tamo bhava, from what? Attraction to the lower modes of material nature. Hearing about those topics which are not related to Krishna. They're necessarily then connected to the modes of nature. Tada rajas tamo bhava kama lobha dayaschaye. And those are connected to the urges of kama, lust, krodha, anger, etc. One notices that they're no longer influencing me, the lower modes of material nature. This is a recovery from being influenced by the modes of material nature. And stitam sattve prasidati. This means that one becomes situated not in ordinary sattva gun, but in shuddha sattva, which means you're no longer touched by any of the lower modes of material nature. Tada rajas tamo bhava kama lobha dayasya cheta iter anavidam. Stita means you're situated there, you have a place to stand now in spiritual life. Sattve means shuddha sattva, prasidati. And prasidati is related to prasad, which means then you start to feel the mercy of Krishna descending into your heart. Then, evam prasanna manaso, the mind becomes happy. Prasanna. Evam prasanna manaso, bhagavat bhakti yogataha, by the process of devotional service, bhagavat tattva vijnanam, and you have realized knowledge. You become very clear the difference between Maya and Krishna. Anyadevahur sambhavad, anyadahura sambhavad. There's a difference between worshiping Krishna and worshiping Maya. You may notice this if you're engaged in devotional service in the assembly of devotees, appreciating to some degree the service and the hearing and the chanting. And then if you go out into the big wide world of Toronto, you may see people engaged in what they're usually engaged in and think, oh, this is still going on? That doesn't look so attractive. You can see the difference between the two. And evam prasanna manaso bhagavat bhakti yogata bhagavat tattva vijnanam. This is means you have direct understanding, realized understanding. Vijnanam mukta sangha sajayate. And practically at that point, one achieves this liberation. One is no longer attracted to the material world or impelled by the modes of material nature to embrace the modes. Then, abhidyate means hridaya grantis chidyante, means there's a complete separation from the living entity's connection to our connection to the material world. Vidite hridaya grantis. There's a knot in the heart that's mentioned in the 6th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam that keeps us here in the material world. Even if one takes self-help, you can go to the YouTube and find a million nuances on any topic of self-help. And you can take all those, 1 million classes. But somehow, at some point, you'll come back to your normal position in the material world by the force of the modes of nature, and you'll be disappointed. That's mentioned in the Bhagavatam 6th canto, where it is said that like a field, you can cut down, or even there's a fire that burns all the grass, but the next rain comes, it comes back up again. So similarly, one may notice that however one tries to position oneself in this world or outrun the bad qualities, somehow or other they spring back again. But vidyate hridaya grantis chidyante sarva samshaya. All of them are destroyed at the root. So this is the medicinal effect of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And I'll just mention one other thing, then we'll take some reflection. It's questions, be helpful. Kaitava. Kitava means a cheater, and kaitava means the process of cheating. So this is dharma projita kaitava. You can say it's a carryover from the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says, Sarva dharman parityaja mamekam sharanam braja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma sucha. And we say, abandon all religion. It doesn't mean that religious processes are bad or dharma is bad. There are many different kinds of dharma. But it means any dharma that's not connected to Krishna, that the objective of one's enactment of that dharma isn't to please Krishna. That's all rejected, and that should be given up. And then we come here to the Srimad Bhagavatam, that says that here there's only one thing. Dharma swanustita punsam vishvakshena katasuya notpada yad yadiratim shrama eva kevalam. If your dharma, whatever you're doing, wherever you're planting your flag and saying this is what I do for righteousness, if it doesn't lead to an enhanced desire to hear about Krishna, to serve Krishna, then this is kaitava dharma, it's cheating. And the Bhagavatam doesn't mince words. It says, Shrama eva hi kevalam, 4 in a row. Means absolutely, positively, without any question, a waste of time. Shrama means it's just useless labor. So, coming out of Bhagavad Gita, we now have, you're entering into the place where there's no cheating. Meaning, you're not cheating yourself, you're not a cheater, and you're not being cheated. And who's it available to? Those who are nirmatsaranam, which means it's an extraordinary claim. I mean, those who are not envious. 100%, Prabhupada said here, not envious. If you've ever thought about what it would feel like to be 100% non-envious, well, it would feel like you're in the spiritual world. Because it's the natural mode here in the material world. Icha, dvesha, samutena, dvandva mohena bharata, sarva bhutani sammoham, sarge yanti parantapa. Prabhupada mentioned in the purport, it's a match with the verse from the Gita, that everyone's born into that sense of icha, dvesha. Envy means, icha means desire to attain some status here in the material world. And dvesha means aversion to other people having a status. Why should they have it? Only I should have it. Or in fact, let's make it like this. Only I should live. Everyone else should die. That's why people kill animals. Prabhupada said it's out of envy. What does it mean? It's like, I'm walking here. Only I should walk here. Everyone else who has feet, their feet should be cut off. Let them all die. Only I should walk on this path here. So, how would one become free from envy? By being fully satisfied. Those who realize that by worshiping Krishna, they become fully satisfied. And they needn't covet what other people have, whether it's their position or their expertise or their beauty or whatever it is. One who realizes one's own beauty as the servant of Krishna, and that the more one serves Krishna, the more beautiful one becomes, the more satisfied one becomes, isn't worried that there's not enough to go around, and that if somebody else is exalted, then I'll look small. Nirmatsaranam, person who's categorically walked away from the material concept of life. Is no longer enamored of one's material position, body, etc. Can enter in here. So one might say, though, I'm not qualified. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu put on a play, he invited his eternal associates to engage in the play. He said the only qualification is you have to be completely free from any material desire. And so suddenly some of the devotees are saying, well, I can't participate. So one might say, of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, no, of course you can participate. You're all eternal pure devotees. But one might think, well, how might I enter into the Srimad Bhagavatam? And that's a question Prabhupada asked on the Jaladuta. How will people be able to receive this message? Because they're so enamored of the modes of material nature and their ways of life. So Prabhupada introduced it a step at a time. And as devotees gathered to hear, they became purified. So if one can appreciate that the Srimad Bhagavatam has the power to overcome the modes of material nature, envy, which create this sense of envy in the material world, and fear, and all the other base qualities that come from illusion, then one might take it as medicine. And that's mentioned in the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Nivritta tarshar upagiyamanas bhavaushadach chotra mano biramat ka uttama shloka ganan vardat puman virajeta vina pashugna, which contains the word aushadhi. Aushadhi means kind of medicine. So this is where we can appreciate the sadhana bhakti of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. One may say, I'm not qualified, I can't enter, I'm not nirmatsaranam. So that's okay, you take it as medicine. And one might say, the people I'm distributing to, they don't even know what it is. Well, how are they going to know what it is if you don't give it to them? Prabhupada once said that. When the devotees are saying, we're going to preach, they're not interested. Prabhupada said, that's why you go preach. Otherwise, how would they become interested? Unless you tell them. They're all open to suggestion. You just have to speak it. Therefore, we're a culture of the Bhagavat. And very particularly, Prabhupada brought it to America, or he said it brought him. And he painstakingly made sure that all the volumes were going to be available. And even after Prabhupada left, he made sure someone else who was trained by him, who could carry the same message, would be able to translate it. Krishna made all those arrangements. He sent Pradyumna, he sent Tridayananda Maharaj, others who were qualified, who had heard from Prabhupada sufficiently, were able to read through the commentaries of the acharyas and give the summary all the way through, what to speak of the tenor of Srila Prabhupada's voice, whom they had heard from for many years. Therefore, we have this greatest treasure. We have the daily process of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam in association with devotees. And of course, we're also distributing it. So we can be very sure of its efficacy, not only for ourselves advancing in devotional service, but also in bestowing it upon other people and helping them to come into the culture of Srimad Bhagavatam. Nothing else will solve problems. Everything else is a stopgap measure to solve the problems of the material world. But if one gets on a regular diet of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam on a daily basis, and of course chanting Hare Krishna, then naturally the impediments to one's sanity will diminish. What to speak of, one will become happy by hearing it. Those are some preliminary comments, and we have 14 minutes left. If you would like to ask a question that you think would expand the conversation or take it in the right direction, in a better direction, then please feel free to ask. Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, thank you. Prabhu, I have a question. That Srimad Bhagavatam, that Srila Prabhupada in the translation in the slokas, they quote maturity. Vyasadeva wrote this Srimad Bhagavatam in his maturity stage.
Oh, Vyasadeva in his maturity.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, my question is like, how we can accept the other Puranas the Vyasadeva is written. So, how we can accept in our lives, day-to-day lives, like beside of Srimad Bhagavatam, how we can accept the other Puranas written by Srila Vyasadeva?
Yeah, just because this is in its maturity doesn't mean that other Puranas that are in concordance with the Srimad Bhagavatam aren't valuable. All the Shastras are valuable in their own right. Even the Karmakanda section is valuable. That's why you find in the Upadeshamrita, Rupa Goswami says, Karmi pya parito hare prayataya vyaktim yayur jnaninas. He's talking of the hierarchy of those that are important and who somehow or other connected with Krishna. He starts with the karmis. And why are they good? Because at least they're following a process that's authorized. So all the Shastras, in fact we say we don't blaspheme the Vedic literatures or literatures in pursuance of the Vedic version. Because it's a huge project, the Vedas. It's meant to appeal to people in various modes of nature. There's 3 different kinds of Puranas for those in the modes of ignorance, passion, and goodness. But why? Because you have to start somewhere. And there are those that are particularly devoted to bhakti, and which are in harmony with the Srimad Bhagavatam. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Matamidam. What are the things Mahaprabhu said? He said, Ramya Kachidupasana Vrajibudu Vargena Bhakalpita Srimad Bhagavatam Pramana Mamalam. Said Prema Pumarto Mahan. He mentions, this is from the Chaitanya Manjusha, but this verse summarizes those directives of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And one of them was that Srimad Bhagavatam is the perfect Purana. Now, how do we judge any other Purana? For instance, if you're reading the Mahabharata or something and you hear something that you can't find in the Srimad Bhagavatam, then we don't accept it. Or other Puranas, we may find points that aren't in the Srimad Bhagavatam, so we don't accept them. But we do accept all those things that are in accordance with the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's the ultimate proof of everything, and it's the ultimate authority on everything, as accepted by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Yes, Maharaj.
Since the Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavat Purana is the mature fruit of Vyasa's work, what would be the need to search for other Puranas if everything's there? I mean, time is limited. Who's got time for all the Puranas? Honestly, so that's just a natural question or follow-up that would, and a comment.
You know,
I guess
want to go to Rasa
time.
Bihari Lal's?
Pardon me?
That's in Loi Bazaar. It's the biggest small bookshop in the world. You go in there and you just keep going up one floor after another. Do you have this? Yeah, it's up there, 3 floors up.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, this is stated in the, what need is there for any other scripture? It's there in the verse. And I once asked Sri Dayananda Maharaj, which version of the Mahabharata should I read? Because he was translating and giving talks on it. He goes, don't read the Mahabharata, just read the Bhagavatam. I was like, okay, that's a lifetime occupation if you want to read the Bhagavatam. Just read, study, go deeply within the Bhagavatam. However, of course, our acharyas quote from many different Puranas. And that's the point I was making when these, and the question you asked, Prabhu, about what about the other Puranas? They are quoted, and they're valuable points made about pure devotional service in various Puranas. And when they jive with the Srimad Bhagavatam, then we accept them. Yes, Maharaj.
Haribol. Yeah, so Prabhupada does make reference to the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, in the purport of the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 17, text 16. And we just wrapped up our readings, chapter 17 this morning, after the Mangalarti. So there he was, Prabhupada is giving credit to immersing yourself in the tales, the pastimes that are there in the Mahabharata, for instance, especially in the section where he's talking about how to discipline the mind control, And if you immerse yourself in these beautiful pastimes in the Mahabharata, that is everything that you could imagine, political intrigue, all that's shady in the palace, romance, everything is there, and plus devotion. So it's, Prabhupada is just giving merit to the Mahabharata, for instance, as instead of reading other literatures that's all out there, popular, like part of the pop culture, he's recommending that we can take some time, to look at these other,
Yes, certainly.
epics.
Yeah, point well taken. There are many, many versions of the Mahabharata, and they've been interpolated. There's a South Indian version, there's a North Indian version, there's this version, that version of the Mahabharata, because over time people have interjected things into the Mahabharata. So in the case of hearing the Mahabharata, one then might, first of all, put it aside. What about the Bhagavad Gita? That's in the Mahabharata. If it's interpolated in various ways, what should we do about that? It's been protected because every acharya has commentated upon the Bhagavad Gita, and therefore it's been left in pristine state. It's one part of the Mahabharata we know is not interpolated. Other parts, the suggestion is if it is in accordance with, in harmony with the Srimad Bhagavatam, and Prabhupada goes out of his way in his purports to bring out parts of the Mahabharata that are, obviously, he brings them into the fold of his commentaries. And there are sections that are parallel with the Mahabharata. That was the meaning of it's all there. And in the case of the Mahabharata, my question of which one should I read is like, if you read the Bhagavatam, you're going to get most of the other things anyway. But then, if you do read the Mahabharata, be sure to corroborate whatever seems to be slightly different with the version of the Bhagavatam. That was the extended point of that, not just don't read the Mahabharata. Is that acceptable?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. All right, Kevala Bhakti?
Hare
Look
Krishna
over
Maharaj.
here. Okay. 1, 2, 3. And short answers. 4. Yes.
Thank you for the class and welcome back to Toronto. Srila Prabhupada in the purport talks about competition. I had a question about that. He mentions animal versus animal, human versus human, nation versus nation, and that devotees rise above such competition. So my question is, often devotees struggle with this. If there is a devotee who's living in a war-torn country or if elections sweep through a nation, devotees can get swept up in this, or even in devotional service, we can find ourselves kind of leaning towards baser instincts of seeking competition, not in a devotional way, but more seeking power, prestige, whatnot. So my question was, what do we do in those situations if A, you find yourself caught in this type of, being swept up in this type of competitive nature, and B, what can we do if we see other devotees being swept up in the same fashion?
Well, A, gravitate towards those who have a higher taste for hearing and try to join their sangha so you can hear and serve in the way they're doing. And B, invite those people to programs. Because everyone needs a safe place to land. Otherwise, what you get is a default mode of the old grimy, chewed up, already been chewed again and again modes of material nature. So that's what we try to do. That's what Prabhupada did, is creating all these centers for hearing and chanting. And it's no competition for the extravaganzas of the material world. I'm just reading with Nirkula a lot of the Prabhupada books, and you find the early days people went out of their way to try to find the extent of material enjoyment through drugs and other illicit activities. But when they heard the Bhagavatam in a tiny storefront, they suddenly calmed down and felt themselves improved and not so interested anymore. So that's the solution to any of our problems. If you ever feel an anxiety, chant Hare Krishna. And if you ever feel confused, chant Hare Krishna and read Srimad Bhagavatam. And then invite other people into the fold. And it works. Okay.
Hare Krishna. How can we identify if our devotional service has subtle material motivations, kaitava?
It's helpful to have mentorship with those who are more advanced than oneself. Just as in any discipline, when you're trying to improve, if you want to be a better tennis player, for instance, you have to have somebody watching your foot when you're serving and saying, wait a minute, you're stepping on the line over and over again because you can't see it yourself. So having a guru, for the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita starts with Vande Gurun Isha Bhaktam. There are many gurus, Vande Gurun, get a lot of good gurus. Vande Gurun Isha Bhaktam. So that you can check yourself, somebody who you give permission to point out things, because generally we're very guarded and we think, yeah, don't tell me anything, I know what I'm doing here. But if you can humble yourself, tasmat gurum prapadyeta jignasu shre uttamam, and go to somebody who you trust and say, please tell me where I can refine myself. And you accept that. That's a mode of life that's the Bhagavata life. Amanidvam, Adambidvam, Ahimsa, Shantirarjavam. All those are listed in the Bhagavad Gita and elsewhere, of the mood of taking on helpful criticism so we can improve. Thanks for the question. Okay? I think we can handle a couple more. 1, 2. Great. So.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much for your class. In the Nashtaprajva Abhadreshu verse, I was always wondering, why does it say that by regular attendance in classes in the Bhagavatam and rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed? Why is it almost, not completely?
It's an interim state. So it's a paragraph that's describing the process that you start and then you come to the point of when you're completely clear. And there are various mentions of this interim state in the Bhagavad itself. One says, Jata Krishna, Jata Shara Makatasu Nirvina Sarvakarmasu Veda Dukkha Makam Kamams Parityage Pranishvara Tato Bhajetamam prita shraddha lorjana nishchaya jushamanas tatam kamams dukaldarkams skaryam. Krishna says something very encouraging that he said, Jata Shraddha, your faith in Matkatasu, in hearing about me, is awakened. You're also disgusted with material life. You know that all material activities lead to misery, but Prityage Pyanishvara means, but you still can't stop it. That's an interim state. Prityage means to give up. Pyanishvara, you don't have the strength yet to do it, even though you know what you're supposed to do. So and then he goes on to say, Tato Pajeta Mam Prita Shraddhalorjana Nishchaya. Have faith in the process, that you're taking the right medicine, and continue. So it's a similar point. You're coming to this stage where you're noticing you're improving. You might at some point have had an ailment and then you're given medicine. First few days you take it, how are you doing? Same, no difference. Then on the fourth day, it's like, I think I feel something. I think I feel a little bit better. Then it becomes more pronounced. And then you can say, oh, I'm actually better. It doesn't hurt anymore. And I can breathe again, and so forth. Okay, two more quick ones.
Today is the 60th anniversary of the incorporation of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Thank you so much for the opportunity to celebrate this day in such a profound way. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. It's so consequential. I was just writing something about institutions, because there's this on-off feeling. Some people say, oh, the heck with institutions. And other people say, oh no, you just have to agree to everything the institution says. Institutions, I was writing and thinking about how it's so necessary as a scaffolding for bhakti, and it was the mode recommended by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and Srila Prabhupada. Obviously, on this day, he signed a document to start an institution. So there's great benefit in that, and also there's a lot of caution. We should have a lot of caution when we go into an institution, because as with any human endeavor, where there's an opportunity for power, as Michel's iron laws of oligarchy state, as soon as you give humans an opportunity to do something good and the power to do it, they start concentrating on the power rather than the good, and they try to consolidate it. So we have to be very, very careful. But we also have to remember that the institution is what's allowing the bhakti to go out to all parts of the world. So both sides have to be there. And last question.
Yeah, Guru Maharaj, I was reading yesterday one of the shloka from Chatru Shloka, Srimad Bhagavatam, and it says, when Krishna talking to Brahma, he said, whatever appears to be to any value, if it's without relation to me, has no reality. So we see that there's a lot of speculation, so our world is really unreal. But when it comes to Krishna consciousness, when you practice it, become real, when you use something in Krishna service. Is that all a part of duality as well? When we have God here, and when it's not practice Krishna consciousness, we don't have it. So this is all a part of duality as well?
Well, duality is mentioned in the Bhagavatam in the definitive verse of the 11th canto. Bhayam dvitiya binibesha tasya ishad apetasya viparyo smiti tanmaya tam buddha abhajitum bhakyaika yesham gurudeva tatma. Dvitiya means two things, that's duality. Dvi, same as English, two. And so what's the problem with the verse you quoted? Is it mentions this. It's the definition of what Maya is. Ritertam yat pratyeta na pratyeta chatmani tadvidyaratmano mayam yatabhaso yatatamaha. As soon as you don't see it in relationship to Krishna, then what you're seeing is Maya. It's the illusory energy. It's a shadow of reality. And so the verse, quintessential verse by Kavi Yogendra in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam says, from this, fear arises when you think something, we're not connected to Krishna anymore. And then you take on this contrary mentality, which means ishad apetasya, you turn away from God. Viparyayo means opposite. Smriti, your whole motive in life is opposite what it should be. You're thinking, I'm a competitor of God. Well, you're not going to do very well. And then it gives the solution to, and it also defines similar definition of Maya. Ishada petasya paryo smriti tanmaya tad. It comes from the potency for illusion called Maya. That's there. One of Krishna's powers. Maya Buddha Abhijatan Yaika Yesham Gurudevatam. Then he gives the solution, which is the last thing I'll say, is that we'll turn back around again. Find someone who can guide you, he said, toward Krishna again, and your problem will be solved. So today's verse is also advocating for this. It says, reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Isn't that beautiful? In fact, for many years, I used to sell books using this line. I'd approach somebody and say, this completely rejects all material activities that are material motivated, propounds the highest truth, which is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries, etc. And people just go, really? Okay, I'll take it. So I recommend you memorize this verse or use it. You can read it off a card when you give somebody a book and you can read that. But if you can't do the whole thing, if you don't have time, or they don't have time, you can just tell them it's reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. That's such a beautiful statement, for the welfare of all, reality distinguished from illusion. And that's really our mission. Because, frankly, although we like Toronto and everything like that, people are totally messed up here. They got it all wrong, and they're suffering. So we have to distribute Srimad Bhagavatam and make sure that they get it right. Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Shri Panchatattva, Shri Shri Gaurnitai, Shri Shri Radhakir Chor Gopinath, Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra, if you so desire, please empower us to hear the Srimad Bhagavatam every day for the next 10 days and feel inspired and have compassion in our hearts for the fallen conditioned souls of Toronto. May we inundate the city with sets of Srimad Bhagavatams, both in print and digital, door to door, store to store, institution to institution, person to person, and everyone, at least everybody in the congregation, both print and digital, and the large size print and the small size print for their house, and one in every room. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone agrees with this prayer in whole or in part. Please say Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Vanchakalpadabhishcha kripasindabhe evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Nantakoti Vaishnavini ki jai.